Welcome to the Chamber Weekly Buzz. Our guests today are Ginny Mohrbutter and Vann Langston. They'll be talking about STEP, Strategic Twin County Education Partnership Initiative. We've got lots of great things to share with you today. Show today is proudly being brought to you by Roger G. Taylor & Associates to share with you a lot of the things that the Chamber is doing both for its members and for the Twin County area. Let's look at some recent activities of our Chamber in the community.
Lodge Daltridge. I'm the chairman of the Rocky Mountain Area Chamber of Commerce, and we're here along with our ambassadors and to celebrate the new Suddenlink retail store. Suddenlink has been a long-time partner of the Rocky Mountain Area Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. I'm Phil Oschlager, Senior Vice President for Suddenlink here in Eastern North Carolina, and we're very proud of this store today. We're proud to do business here in Eastern North Carolina and in Rocky Mount. Rocky Mount is one of our key markets, and as it was just said, we invested over $10 million last year. Putting in our new store is just another way for us to make it easy for our customers to do business. We are closing the other store at our other location, and now customers can come here. It's more centrally located. It's just an easier way for customers to gain access to us, and also a way for us to be more consultative and also to display the many products that we have.
And I just want to say thank you for the turnout today. It's quite overwhelming and exciting, and it shows that Rocky Mount is certainly committed to Suddenlink, and we are definitely committed to our Rocky Mount area. This is our first store remodel, and I've been involved from the very beginning as far as picking out the location and working with all of our various vendors to make this project come together. So this is a very exciting day.
We are so happy today to learn more about the STEP program, which many of you have read about in the newspaper, but we have the facilitator for the program, Vann Langston. It stands for Strategic Twin Counties Education Partnership, correct?
That's right. Very good.
And Ginny Mohrbutter. Ginny, everybody knows you, Executive Director of the United Way, but you're here in your capacity primarily as a board member.
Absolutely.
For STEP. But Vann, part of, I guess what we'd like to do, and I'm going to let y'all decide who wants to take this, create the need for STEP. I know that many of us heard at the State of the Community address that Ken Anderson announced it, and everyone was thrilled until he said he was leaving, which we all so dearly loved him and his family and what he did with Cummins Rocky Mount Engine. But give us the history. One of you, Ginny, do you want to do it?
Sure,
Okay.
I'll take that. You know, the Chamber of Commerce here in Rocky Mount held an education summit a couple years back, and a dialogue came out of that we really needed to work to mobilize the resources around the school systems, particularly of our twin counties, Nash Rocky Mount Public Schools, Edgecombe County Public Schools. And if businesses and social services and other entities would kind of rally around those two school systems and the needs in our community, what could we do if we really did that? And how could we bring the business community in at a higher level? How could we bring in those resources and really collaborate and partner at the highest level possible? And so the idea really kind of came out of that. And of course, you mentioned Ken Anderson, Cummins Rocky Mount Engine Plant, and some other leaders, including Chamber of Commerce, have come together to create STEP. So really our end goal is that we can have higher partnership, higher collaboration, sharing professional resources between the school districts, and mobilizing groups of people through our Community Action Coalition and things we'll probably get into. But to have that dialogue and have that shared discussion on sharing resources and making education the best we can in the Twin Counties.
And a lot of what's been discussed through the years by people who've helped with visioning process has been that we can't have two separate counties because Rocky Mount is in two counties, that would be a stronger reason to say that if we join forces, it will raise the boat for both counties, as opposed to one county trying to go on their own and one on their own, the other one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been great to see the two school districts working together through this initiative and in other ways. And because our live-work patterns, when you think about, there are a lot of folks that are working in Rocky Mount but living maybe in Pine Tops or in Tarboro or vice versa. And the children, they're moving back and forth between the Twin Counties regularly, and the resources are scarce sometimes. So why not, if we've got Common Core coming out through the state system, and we've got other training opportunities. So the thought was, if we could work together between those school districts and encourage business community to surround that, we could come out with a higher achievement and some other hopefully outcomes that we're looking for, and maximize the shared resources.
Better job preparation too, so we can have better jobs in this area, more highly skilled workforce.
Right.
Vann, you came in, I read your background, and you've been involved in this type of thing in a lot of other areas, but what attracted you to be our facilitator and help us drive toward our goal?
Well, I grew up in Henderson, North Carolina, and I have to tell you that as a high schooler, our greatest fear was Rocky Mount Gryphon showing up on Friday night.
Well, we had Danny Galbert and Brent Milgram, and
that's right. So I have known of Rocky Mount for a long time. In fact, have relatives who live here. But I was very interested in the notion that a community would decide to create its own future, rather than waiting for a future to come to its doorstep. And in eastern North Carolina, the future that comes to our doorstep right now is a kind of bleak one in many ways. And I think these two counties and the city stuck in the middle, they have a wonderful idea that if we worked together more than perhaps we have in the past, the children who live in these two counties would have a brighter future. And so the trick is, how can we build a shared vision across this whole region, and secondly, pay attention to the details we need to in order to make that vision happen.
How will you come up with to-do lists? I know that you've done this in other areas. Will you look for best practices from other areas? Or?
Right. In this case, I think the way to think of this initiative is there are two sides to this coin called STEP. On one side of the coin, there's the two school districts working together to get better. And I'll give you an example in a minute or two of some things that are already happening.
Good.
But the districts are going to work to get better. On the other side of the coin, it's really important that the community as a whole work to get better as well. I wish sometimes we would put a billboard up in every community that has a graduation rate on it for that county, and everybody that looked at it would think, what can I do to improve that, rather than always thinking, what should someone else do to improve that? And I think that's part of what's been missing in our vision lately, is the notion that there's a role to play for lots of folks. And
everyone needs to take ownership.
Everyone. And where you have a child that doesn't have the support they need in their family, the community has two choices. They can ignore that child and doom them almost from birth, or they can choose to step in some way, perhaps if they never have before, recognizing that we need all our youngsters in the workforce of the future. And you ask, how do we come up with the details? Well, there are three bodies that are working really. A board of directors made up of the superintendents and business community folks on the one hand that will manage this, and then there's a education working group made up of the key central office decision makers in the two school districts, which would be about 20 people or so. The other body is a community action coalition. There'll be about 50 people recognizing all the other arenas that work for children and families in our community, both government and nonprofit and faith. And we need to work together and come up with a set of goals and strategies that an entire community would know and act on. So.
Yeah, this reminds me a little bit of Down East Partnership, when Henrietta Zalkind was pulling together so there wouldn't be duplication of services, but everybody brought their best to the program and determined who could carry out those things the best, and then people, there wouldn't be duplication of the same people doing the same things instead of target audience.
Exactly.
And you're going to have a 501(c)(3) status.
STEP is a 501(c)(3) organization, so it can receive donations. We've applied for a grant to the Cummins Foundation already and have received that. So our first year is sort of locked in, and
generously so, I might say.
Absolutely. And we're already talking about a 3-year grant beyond this first year, and there's certainly nothing to prevent other businesses or foundations from contributing over time as this thing begins to grow.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back and talk more. Stay with us, please.
We are the past,
Present.
and the future leadership of your Chamber of Commerce.
we are business members focusing on new beginnings, boldly creating our Twin Counties future.
Members working toward broader thinking, community reinvestment, and public policy supporting strong business.
We are partnerships that create new beginnings.
We are business and community leaders working together for a better tomorrow.
And this is my time.
Thank you for staying with us, Vann Langston and Ginny Mohrbutter. And one thing before we move on to the future, and because we really want to talk about how we know that this will succeed and has to succeed in our commitment to it. The two school boards got together. Vann, you want to tell us about that? That was something that hadn't happened before.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled, actually, because unless you have the kind of support from the the elected bodies, it just won't happen over time. But these two boards met over a year ago to envision this notion, and then we met again not long ago to let them know the progress we were making and what role we needed them to play. And we've now worked out arrangements with both districts that on a regular basis, STEP will be an agenda item.
Good.
In their school board meetings. Also, we're trying to align where we can the two strategic plans. Both boards have adopted strategic plans in recent weeks. We're trying to align those and to begin to see where we could work together, save money in terms of professional development and learn from each other and that kind of thing. I think it's also important, this is an amazing time in the life of these two communities, that there are so many new leaders coming to bear at the same time.
Give an example.
Well, you've got two new superintendents. You've got changes now in the Cummins plant manager. Ken Anderson has left, and Calvin Balance has replaced him. You've got a report from the University of North Carolina around what we need to be doing about economic development. People are raising the right kind of questions, and it's almost a perfect time to come together and chart a new direction. And I think that's what it is. It is new, and it's more powerful when we work together. And
I like that you have experience across the state. I mean, you've been an assistant superintendent, you've been in curriculum development, you've had quite a background in this, and so we're really counting on you to keep us from doing stupid stuff, but also steer us in the right direction.
Right. Well, it's fortunate that I had the opportunity to work in the Research Triangle, the 5 school districts there for over 5 years on a very similar project, funded by the business community, goals set by the business community, and what the business community is really good at is measuring goals.
Right.
And that's what will make this successful. You've got 2 superintendents and 2 school boards very seriously focused on setting goals and measuring outcomes.
We want to see success. I mean, success breeds success, and it encourages people, and you did see success then in that endeavor.
Absolutely, we did. So a dramatic success in terms of increased graduation rates, things of that sort.
Good.
And I think you'll see here that same notion. We need to set goals for the community development side of this as well. You know, we need to give ourselves a report card for how the community supports children and families, just like we need a report card for how well schools are doing. And if we measure both of those things, we'll get really focused goals, and the strategies will become really clear.
what can people watching do, and what can we look for, and how can we participate? Because this might be, I almost feel like this is our last chance. We've got to do this, and we've got to embrace it to help our community.
Absolutely. If I can add to what you were saying as far as, you know, one of the things we've really talked a lot about with STEP is that it has to be self-determining to a certain level, because, you know, we talked about the working group with the leaders from both school systems. They are in there every day, working day in and day out, and knowing the pulse of where and the needs and where things are. So they're going to be a great guiding force for STEP. And our Community Action Coalition will be made up of leaders, 45 to 50 leaders from across the Twin Counties. They're going to help us as well, because, you know, if we mandate things, they don't work as well as people from the ground up saying these are the important things we need to be focusing in on, and these are the goals at the end of the day that we feel that we are important for us to achieve and that we can achieve. So we've got some things in place, but those two groups are going to be a huge guiding force for us, because those are community members and those are people right here in the Twin County region.
Are they pretty spread out such that people through their churches, through any other civic groups and whatnot, might have a representative on that board who will come back and say, we need to adopt this as a project, this is something that we can do?
We've looked and created almost like a matrix, looking at the two-county region and looking at the different, we talked a little bit about social services, the health departments, faith leaders, nonprofit leaders, number of people law enforcement, you know, the judicial system, juvenile justice, all the things that are impacting our children and families, and how in individuals and groups that can help us have higher quality services and quality of life for our citizens. So we've looked at that, and many people will know those individuals, and we're actually recruiting now to get those people put into places on our Community Action Coalition. But certainly if people are interested and they hear this broadcast, they want to learn more, we welcome, you know, feedback and involvement in any way that people would like to give back to what we're doing, certainly.
We've set a goal to have this Community Action Coalition fully named in the middle of October, so we're in the midst of that process right now.
Are you finding that most people are willing to serve and able to serve?
Well, the Community Action Coalition is meeting quarterly, and that, you know, we're recruiting and asking people that serve in different sectors and that have busy schedules. So we've thought quarterly would be an effective way, and the people we've spoken to thus far have been very receptive.
Well, and part of the future funding of it through grants and all will be based on your being able to prove measurable results have been attained.
Absolutely. We've got success has got to build on success. And I think that the real change here is we need everybody in these two counties to start talking about we and not they. When we look at a graduation rate, it's got to be what can we do versus what can someone else do. And that applies whether almost every one of those statistics in some way can be impacted when we think we. Whether it's the crime rate, it's just one thing after another. But I do want the broader community to recognize there is a key role that the average person can play in improving school achievement and the quality of the workforce in these two counties.
And Vann, you'll communicate that to us, right? Because there are a lot of people out there who are thinking, I'd like to help, but you're going to have to tell me what I can do.
I think the Community Action Coalition will do that. The working group certainly will say to the community, here are some places that we could use more help in the community. There are many children that need a mentor.
And communities and schools had helped with some of that, but there aren't enough. You can always use more.
This is all about multiplying. This is not a criticism of what anyone is currently doing. It's just when you look at the gap between what our aspiration is and what our achievement level is, we know we need to do more than we are currently doing. And that's this whole conversation is how can we do more with the resources we have.
What's the time frame? Is this for perpetuity, that you're going to get this going and keep it going, or?
Well, our original plan calls for a 4-year project. And we agreed that at the end of the 4 years there would be a community-wide conversation about whether or not to continue the organization beyond that point. Now, our position is that if we work with organizations and improve their the way they work, then we would have done our job. That is, we would leave in its wake organizations that work better than they did. And in the business community, that's known as continuous improvement. We want to do that kind of training with lots of organizations, and we think we'll leave the community better off. But if the community decides we need to keep working together even more, then they have that option.
And future accountability. I mean, Ginny, you live right here, and Vann, we want you to come back a whole lot in the future
I plan
too.
to do that.
But I mean, I think everybody needs continuing encouragement and lifting up, because it's hard, especially as new people come in, and to maintain the momentum without the accountability being measured on a regular basis.
Right.
Well, we have certain milestones that we are working towards. One of them is to hire an executive director that will be a staff leader for this project. So to your point, it takes, you know, board directors and volunteers serving on different committees, but it takes oftentimes, you know, a strong staff member that can really help us move things forward, and we're working on that now.
Are you interested, Vann? You seem like a really good candidate.
We actually are that close. Perhaps in the next week or so we'll
Okay, well,
be
I
able
just
to do
knew
that.
we'd like
And
to
then we'll
pitch
have
that
them
we
come in
use.
first.
I know,
Come on in first.
we've tried. But then once that person is in place, and we're putting other things in place while we're preparing for that person to be on board, but we'll be looking at kind of a needs assessment, or kind of a root cause analysis is the term that we're using for it. We've got a timeline for that, and then after that, we will put a plan in place. You know, because we have, you know, it's hard to put a plan in place when you still have to assess. And again, we want things to be the local community to help us determine it. So we won't have everything in place right away, because we have to look and see exactly where the needs are, and then put a plan in place after that. So that's all kind of in the works in the next 3 to 6 months, around that timeline.
You won't lack for needs that are identified.
No,
Right. I think what's different about this is we really are going to look at data in order to decide what to do. Sometimes school reform efforts, people bring preconceived answers, and perhaps they're not really solving the right problem. So this is a slow process. In that first year, we really will look at what the data says, not people's opinions, and then decide how to go forward. And that applies whether it's school district work or community-based work. And we may discover something that needs attention that hasn't gotten it before. But
We're out of time, but I want y'all to come back and talk more about this. But keep all of us involved in this. We really care tremendously about what you're doing, and I think you will find this a very supportive, caring community, if you haven't already seen that already. So thank you. Thank you both. Thank you. Have a great day.
We are the past,
Present.
and the future leadership of your Chamber of Commerce.
we are business members focusing on new beginnings, boldly creating our Twin Counties future.
Members working toward broader thinking, community reinvestment, and public policy supporting strong business.
We are partnerships that create new beginnings.
We are business and community leaders working together for a better tomorrow.
And this is my town.